Good morning. Before we get started, do you remember the lasting memory verses? Exodus 34:14. Do not worship any other God, for the Lord whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. James 1:2. Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. In Psalms 119:9. How can a young person stay on the path of purity? By living according to your word. As you listen to today's Bible story, think about these questions. Number 1, why did the people finally desire a king to rule over them? Number 2, who gave permission for the people to have a king? Number 3, the first king came from which of Israel's tribes? Number 4, why did Samuel treat Saul with such great respect at the feast? And number 5, who anointed Saul to become Israel's first king? The Israelites want a king. Samuel anoints Saul. Samuel made his home at Ramah and built an altar to the Lord. During the year, he went from city to city throughout Israel and judged the people. He was the last of 15 judges who ruled the people of Israel. When Samuel grew old, he had his sons help him in judging the Israelites. But the two young men were not fair in their judgments. They decided matters in favor of the person who gave them the most money. The elders of Israel were so concerned about these two young men that they came to Ramah to talk to Samuel. They said, Samuel, you are getting old, and your sons are not fair in their judgments like you. Give us a king to rule over us. Samuel did not answer the elders then. Instead, he talked to God about it. The Lord told him, do what the people want. They are not rejecting you, but they are rejecting me. They do not want me to be their king. Do as they say, but let them know how you feel about this matter. Help them know what it would be like to have a king rule over them.
And Samuel told the elders what the Lord had said. If you have a king, Samuel said, he will take your sons to drive his chariots, be his horsemen, serve in his army, run his farm. He will take your daughters to work in the palace. He will take the best food you grow for himself and his servants. Of all you own, he will take 1/10. Then you will complain about the king you have chosen, and the Lord will not listen to you. Even after the elders heard this, they said, we want a king. Then we will be like other nations. Our king can judge us and lead us in battle. Again, Samuel told the Lord what the people had said. Again, the Lord told him, listen to them and give them a king. Finally, Samuel told the elders, return to your homes, for God will give you what you have asked.
Kish was a rich man who owned wide fields and green pastures in the land of Benjamin. He had many cattle to care for. Sometimes his son Saul helped. One day, several donkeys wandered away from the pasture and got lost in the woods. Kish told his son, take one of the servants and go find the lost donkeys. For 2 days, Saul and the servant hunted for the animals but could not find them anywhere. Finally, Saul said, let's go back. My father will soon forget about his animals and think we are lost. But Saul's servant did not want to return home without the lost animals. He said, let us stop in this city and ask the man of God to tell us where the animals are.
Saul and his servants hurried on. At the gate they met Samuel, the man of God. At once Samuel knew that Saul was the man God had told him about the day before. Tomorrow about this time, God had said, I will send you a man from the tribe of Benjamin. Him you must anoint to be king of my people. He will be the captain of the army, and he will save Israel from the Philistines. Even before Saul could ask about the lost animals, Samuel told him, come to the feast with me. Then you may go home tomorrow. For the animals you lost 3 days ago have been found, and now you are a man to whom all Israel is looking. How surprised Saul was. He said, I am a Benjamite, of the smallest tribe of Israel. My family is least in the whole tribe. Why should you say this to me? Samuel took Saul to the feast and gave him a place among the most important guests. The best food was placed before Saul. Samuel told him, I have the best saved for you.
After the feast, Samuel took Saul to a quiet place where they could talk. The next morning, Saul and his servants started home. Samuel walked out of the city with them. Finally, he told Saul, "Tell your servant to go ahead, for I want to tell you the word of the Lord." When the servant was gone, Samuel anointed Saul's head with oil. He kissed the tall young man and said, "I am doing this because God has chosen you to be king of the Israelites." So Saul would believe God had chosen him. Samuel told him 3 things that would happen on the way home. At Zelzah, he would meet 2 men with word that his father's donkeys had been found, and now he was worried about Saul. At Bethel, 3 men would give him 2 loaves of bread. Finally, he would meet with the group of prophets near a Philistine stronghold. As Saul walked towards his home, he became a changed man. He knew God was within him, for he met men who brought news from his father and others who gave him bread. Even the prophets talked to him. When Saul got near home, he stopped to offer a sacrifice. There, his uncle met him. Now let's answer the questions from earlier. Number 1, why did the people finally desire a king to rule over them? They wanted to be like the nations around them. Number 2, who gave permission for the people to have a king? God. Number 3, the first king came from which of Israel's tribes? Benjamin. Number 4, why did Samuel treat Saul with such great respect at the feast? He knew God had chosen Saul to become king of Israel. And number 5, who anointed Saul to become Israel's first king? Samuel. This week's memory verse is James 4:3. And even when you ask, you don't get it because you ask for wrong motives, that you spend what you get on your pleasures. Think about it. Timmy's flower.
Today, we are going to draw a picture, Timmy's kindergarten teacher announced. Good, Timmy thought. He liked to draw pictures. He could draw lions and tigers and trains and boats. He took out his crayons and began to draw. But the teacher said, "Wait, it's not time to begin." She paused until everyone looked ready. "Now," she said, "we're going to draw flowers." Good, Timmy thought. He began to draw beautiful flowers with his orange and pink and blue crayons. But the teacher said, "Wait." She drew a picture of a flower on the blackboard. It was red with a green stem. "There," she said. "Now you may begin."
Timmy looked at his teacher's flower. He liked his better, but he didn't say anything. He just turned his paper over and made a flower like the teacher's. It was red with a green stem. A few days later, the teacher said, "Today we are going to make something with clay."
Good, Timmy thought. He could make all kinds of things with clay. Snakes and snowmen and elephants and mice. He began to pinch and pull his ball of clay. But the teacher said, "Wait, I'll show you how." And she showed everyone how to make a dish. So Timmy rolled his clay into a ball, flattened it, and made a dish that looked just like the teacher's. Timmy learned to wait and watch and make things just like the teacher's. And pretty soon, he stopped making creations of his own.
Then, one day, Timmy's family moved to another city, and Timmy attended a new school. On his first day, Timmy's new teacher said, "Today, we are going to draw a picture." Good, Timmy thought, and he waited for the teacher to tell him what to do. But the teacher didn't say anything. She just walked around the room. When she came to Timmy, she said, "Don't you want to draw a picture?" "Yes," said Timmy. "What are we going to draw?" "Well, I don't know until you draw it," the teacher said. "How should I make it?" he asked. "Why, any way you like." "And any color?" "Any color," the teacher said. "If everyone drew the same thing in the same color, how would I know who made what?" "I don't know," said Timmy, and he began to draw a flower. It was red with a green stem. Application.
When Timmy was very young, he was robbed of his creativity. His teacher told him that there was only one way to draw a flower or shape a lump of clay. You may be more like Timmy than you realize. You have the potential to draw outside the lines, to be creative, to use your talents and gifts in a remarkable and unique way. But the world has told you that you can't do it. The world we live in conditions us at an early age to believe that we all have to look the same, act the same, and think the same. Then, when Jesus calls us to be different, we find it difficult, if not impossible, to respond to his call. Do not conform any longer to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans 12:2. If you will allow Jesus to have control of your life, you can break out of the world's mold and become what God created you to be. Our memory verse for today is, and even when you ask, you don't get it because you ask with wrong motives, that you spend what you get on your pleasures. James 4:3.
This concludes today's lesson.